All right, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of 2025, episode 345 in Stew in the Nunn world in our calendar. But here with my brother from another mother, Toby. How you doing, buddy? From the very southern studio in Cabo San Lucas.
The very southern studio, almost at Land's End, broadcasting live on
Yeah,
Stu and the Nut. It is good to be back, my man. And yes, Venti Cinco is upon us.
it is. 2025. That's right. Still drinking my Oktoberfest because, well, I haven't drank it all yet. So,
I'm going
as
to be
long as,
drinking a Snapple because it's made from the best things on earth.
oh, there we go. And you learned some trivia along the way. But,
Yeah.
anyways, good to see you, brother. It's been a while. A lot of crazy things happening. We have a show happening a little bit earlier than normal tonight. You
Sorry.
got a big schedule, but I'm just glad to have you on, and we got a lot of things to hit. We're going to talk about 2024. We're going to both kind of bounce back and forth and give our perspectives on what we think some of the biggest news articles are, and then, man, we're only 2 days into 2025, and we're going to be talking about what's happened so far and what we think this year is going to hold. I mean, everyone always wishes well and hopes good things happen and bid farewell till the past year. I think everyone always bids farewell, kind of like glad that's over. I've never known anyone to go, wow, I missed that. Like, I guess no one has anything happen good. What do you think? I mean, it seems like people are like, I hate this year's over. People are usually like, farewell, get the heck out of here. I hope something happens better the next year. It just seems like we always have to have a heartache when it comes to the end of the year.
That's an astute observation. No, I was doing like a little social experiment, and I was going through different feeds, right? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the snaps, as the kids call it. And yes, everyone seems to lament the year more than embrace and be excited about the new. And sometimes I have to even like ask myself, and that's why I kind of did this social experiment to kind of go see like, and I tried to look at like some of the people that inspire me the most, always people with positivity and people with, like the happy, good vibe. And yeah, it's weird that we do tend to lament more than we do to like reminisce. And yeah, you can always look in the rearview mirror and see the accident coming. You can always look in the rearview mirror and see how you almost hit that pedestrian. You can look in the rearview mirror and see many things. But that all that does is distract from looking forward, right? And you got to look through the big windscreen versus the little mirror. And I want to believe that I'm stepping with positivity. I just want to step with positivity. And if it was a crappy year, which we've all had crappy years,
I mean, there's always going to be bad things, and we
yeah, like
heartache, just bad luck, whether it's major or minor. But I don't think
yeah, I think when we just lump things into like a whole year, and then we treat that year as a season of life versus just a season,
right.
uh, we will tend to lament versus reminisce. Um, you and I both lost our fathers. And, in the years at which that happened, that was an impactful year.
Yeah.
Like everyone remembers the year that 9/11 happened. Everyone remembers the year that, their loved one passed or, something. And, you know, of course, like, you want to grieve, but it's also like, hey, like every day is an opportunity for a greater, better thing to happen. And
Yeah.
so,
No,
in the
look,
words of Michael J. Fox, it's better to be the eternal optimist, than the regretful lamenter.
in
Unless
the
you're
light
Conan.
in light of 2025 starting to, you brought up Michael J. Fox. I was probably going to make an inappropriate joke, but I'm going to leave it. not go there. But
What? Nothing happened to him, right? He's
no,
good,
nothing
right? Okay.
good. But I'm gonna try to be more.
Canadian treasure.
Yeah, but look, at our age, not even our age, right? It happens to us younger, but it's hard to go 365 days, and usually you don't lose someone you're close to, but especially as older you get, like we are. I mean, it's going to happen more often, whether it's be family members, friends, or whatever. And I can't think of I just can't think of a year where I've looked back and said I didn't lose anybody that I knew, or that it was sad, or maybe I was connected to in some way, maybe not super close, but yeah, it's been something. And are you big into resolutions? Are you a resolution guy? I'm not a resolution guy. Never have been.
I am not. However,
Okay, but a lot of people seem to be. I've never been
yeah.
like, I'm starting now. I'm going to do this. It's like, I don't know what that is, but I didn't know if you were.
No, I am not, because I've always, like, when people, new year, new me, anytime someone does that, I absolutely believe that that's a temporary thing. It's not a life change. It's not something. It's just like I'm not. I got to do this thing so I'm a better person. Like, you don't do it because it's a new year. You should do that because you want to be a better person.
Right.
This year, and I kind of, it was part of the social experiment that I was, like, investigating. I I set some goals for myself, and in terms of having it on a calendar year, it definitely makes it easier in terms of management and tracking and stuff. But mine are, like, super simple, and they're not new things. They're just reinvigorating things that brought me joy in the past. Uh, One is early morning calisthenics, because nothing brings more joy to your life than, getting a little party pump right off the start, from the buzzer to the floor, and like, getting some calisthenics in with your prayer, just, like, get it going. But the biggest thing is, I've noticed here in Mexico that my use of the English language has suffered retardation. And I, as a result, I think, of speaking broken English and broken Spanish in an effort to kind of communicate, my English has diminished, and it's not as good as it needs to be. So, as a goal, I've set to take part in more reading, because the more I read in the past, the better my language was, the better my cognitive skills were, and so I want to bring that back into a more common mechanism. And so I set some goals of 12 books, not necessarily one per month, but just ensuring time every day. I used to have a practice that I don't have anymore, that I'm embarrassed that I don't. And that's, like, whether it was the Bible or whether it was something else, I always put it on top of my computer or on my keyboard, so that I had to physically move it out of the way to start doing work, which, would convict me and riddle me with guilt, so that I would read and consume knowledge or whatever before actually doing something else for the rest of the day.
So let me
So
ask you: do you think do you think it's happened because you're speaking more Spanish, or you're doing this mushing of two languages together?
it's the mushing of two languages. It's the mushing of two languages, and the mix of conjugations, and getting too comfortable with jargon, like mixed jargon, versus using proper words. And I was having a conversation with my teenager the other day, and I counted a bunch of F bombs
I was
in
gonna
both
ask,
in both languages. And again, I regrettably don't get as much time with my kids as I would like.
I
Um,
was gonna
and
ask
I
more or less F bombs and R bombs.
Yeah, well, there's no such thing as an R bomb. There's the appropriate use of the word. I believe I used it appropriately earlier.
Minutes
The
ago, yeah, very
Yeah,
well.
and it's my goal to bring that word back in its proper usage.
There we go.
It's my goal to bring back words that have been taken from us wrongfully.
Yeah. Are you going to bring
Because
back from the Great White North of Canada? Are you trying to bring hoser back or anything to that degree?
like
Rez.
do you know the history of the word hoser?
I do not know the history of the word hoser. Can we save that go? Because that would be an interesting. We could do a whole one on that.
Yeah, no, like there's some history to it. It actually it comes from a cool thing. It comes from hockey. So I dig it.
They never said it on Letterkenny, so probably because it's been overused. But anyways, let's get on with the show because I know you have but I did want to know about the resolution. But interesting thing about the language, because obviously you're born in Canada, raised there as a youth, and then came to the United States. Now you of course live in the U.S. and you also run a business in Mexico. So you've come from, I don't know if they speak the Queen's English and Western Canada.
But absolutely, yeah.
You speak a lot of California English, Texas English, and now Spanglish. So I would almost consider you a master of the English language, my friend.
I'm a jack or master. I'm not sure, but definitely something in there.
Oh, Rob wants to know if you speak French.
Yeah, I studied French in school. Obviously, Canada is a bilingual country. I had to learn it by law. I found the most use for French in my life, though, was reading the backside of cereal boxes. So I understood that it was the Le Crunch Capitaine.
There we go. I think I've heard you speak French before. I thought, but
yeah, I mean, every now and then, it'll slip out.
You probably were just talking dirty to me at a bar in Vegas. I don't know.
Yeah, but no, that used to be my go-to. It used to be my go-to. I my alter ego before I was married was Quebecois. I would do the worst Quebecois accent in English, and then throw in French words to try and woo the ladies.
See, I'm more what's his name in Glorious Bastard. I'm more like a Arrivederci, That's but, hold on. I'm still getting over this cough. I was sick for a couple weeks. Sorry. I know we hadn't done a show since December 5th. I was sick for a few weeks in December. Had a bad sinus infection or something. I'm still shaking this.
Yeah. By sick, everybody, he means that he was braving the cold in a stand, harvesting as much meat as possible.
We think
2024 was a great meat year for Troy, by the way, everybody.
Actually, not as good as the last couple of years. I did come in one shy. I only got 6 this year, which I'm very thankful for. I know a lot of people.
2025 will be better.
Yes, I was bucking for 8. I was trying 2 tags, but it just didn't work out. But yeah, my wife thinks that it was all the time in the stand, the cold, the rain, the snow that led to it. So anyways, I was doing my best to kill it with parasites with 80 proof medicine, but it didn't work. Yeah. So anyways, so I want to talk about a couple of things. If you got a couple lists up to come up, I kind of put together a short list of some things, and I just want to kind of bring up that I think are major news stories of 2024. And when I bring just kind of I'll give my quick perspective on it, and then just kind of ask you what your thoughts and perspective on it are too. When I look back and I went through a whole bunch of news stories and look back at what trends or just what I considered major news things. And there's one that stands out above. There's 2 that stand out above all, and I'll highlight those. But the first one to see when I look over from 2024 from January to December was airplanes had a hard year. Jets are not going to look back.
Yeah.
We started with door plugs and doors blowing off. We had landing gear falling off and landing on parking lots of LAX. All the way
not deploying.
Landing gear not deploying. Some were right. They were shot down. December was really bad. Russia does have a tendency to shoot down jets when they don't mean to. Just overall, between landing gear and doors and different stuff like that, and still just stories keep coming out about things in the last couple of days. Air travel just really seemed to take a hit, and I don't know. It seemed to be mostly tied to one manufacturer, Boeing seems to be. That seem to be a lot of their stuff, which also, ironically, coincidence, have had some issues with whistleblowers dying unexpectedly over the last couple of years. I just
Yeah.
not saying correlation, but it did just kind of when I think of them, and I think of that. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, as an aviation enthusiast, I'm a huge fan of flight, love planes, love aviation. You and I both spent time in Alaska. I took aviation science in high school, so I could work towards my, single engine land. Uh, I I love and am always fascinated with aircraft, and it has been a tough year. I uh, on the accident level, I think anytime you have an organization as large as a manufacturer like Boeing, uh, you have quality control issues, right? You have a bureaucratic system. You have corners being cut. You got bean counters, bottom lining things, and that trickles all the way down. And anytime you got Senator Hawley, like lighting somebody up in Washington, there's probably a reason. And seeing the Boeing CEO's feet being held to the fire for him getting a 300 and something percent raise while his employees haven't got a 3% raise in like 10 years or something. It's wild. And then everything kind of being pushed at and pointed to one kind of origin in terms of Boeing. And then again, like suicide, I guess, is a real thing for people that have information. Uh, it's like, but
Or that have
I
their
also,
own islands. I'm just saying.
yeah, I also, yes, yeah, owning an island is also a way to commit suicide. The one thing I will say in terms of aviation that I think really kind of brought to the public eye was the current and outgoing administration's lack of aviation enforcement, both in terms of standards of care and keep, but also of airspace. And I don't think that in my memory, I can recall as many violations of our airspace. And I'm talking like egregious violations of our airspace that, we now know, like we have, the balloons, right? Spy balloons going across our country, uh, uninterrupted, and it really took public pressure. And let's be honest, that was the answer, right? Public
Yeah,
pressure is
at the
what
public.
brought it down. Not
Yeah,
not a military leader making a decision, not the commander in chief making a decision about that. It was like public pressure then forced a decision to be made. Uh, when we look at fighters, tankers, bombers, primarily of Russian origin, violating our airspace. Secondly, with Chinese vehicles, and then the great drone conspiracy of
I was gonna say,
2024.
yeah, throw drones in there over the last few months,
Yeah.
right?
So it's just aviation has really been a big thing this year. But I think, and of course, this is my opinion, uh, it derives back to the lack of security of the sky. In
It,
the past, I believe the United States Air Force was the greatest aviation force in the development of humankind. I believe it still is and should be. I just don't think it's been managed correctly. And we need to get control of the skies again.
yeah, it's
Um,
airspace management, right?
yes.
It's sure things. It's part infrastructure and it's part security, whether it be DHS, DoD, or whatever. Right? It's both. But there seemed to be but there seemed to be an infrastructure issue. Not whether it's Mayor Pete or whatever, but that is his agency. I mean, not only did you have planes falling, you got ships that can't miss bridges, right? And a massive ship that's just So that's one thing I noticed when I looked back over the news was
Man.
we're going to talk about hurricanes and also there seemed I don't know what if there was enough emphasis this year or if it was just man everything Murphy came invaded the Department of Transportation or what, but a lot of things that are infrastructure related or should be handled by things like that seem to really suffer this year.
Yeah, I think that's leadership, man. I think that's a direct reflection on leadership. Now, you mentioned Mayor Pete, as you called him, but as a whole, I think we've just had poor leadership.
Yeah.
And what I mean by poor leadership, I'm not trying to say something disparaging about individuals in leadership. I think we've had bad leadership systemically. And I believe that I know in my experience, when the mantle of responsibility of human life is placed on the shoulders of a subordinate, especially a younger person, it forces them to make decisions and make timely decisions and have the courage to make those decisions and stand by them, right or wrong, and then answer for it if wrong and be rewarded for it or acknowledged for it if correct. And I believe that we have not had a plethora of good leadership in the last decade, uh, and maybe more. And we need people like the Mayor Buttigiegs of the world, one, to be qualified for their job, and
Yeah.
two, to make timely decisions. Um, I believe someone that was the mayor of a major American city has the understanding or should have the understanding of infrastructure and being in an executive position, executive style position.
Right.
They should be able to handle that. And I'm excited for 2025 because I think we're going to see that mantle of leadership, that heavy weight, that awesome responsibility put on the shoulders of amazing women and men in America.
Yep.
And
Yep.
yes, I deliberately said women first because I'm old school, I'm chivalrous. And
Yeah. And there's a lot of women. It looks like they're going to be in positions of authority,
yeah,
command.
yeah, come on,
Next,
let's go.
but we're not going to get into 2025 yet. Hold on. But I
Yeah,
agree with you getting there. But yeah, ships and bridges, that thing. I mean, everyone forgot about the Baltimore Bridge. What a major, if anyone's been over that or seen it, I was there after it. I went by when I was down there for a couple months later, and it was weird to just see this road just stop like in midair. Like, oh, that's where it was. And you kind of forget. You take for granted that these things are always there, and you see them like, wow, that was a giant thing. It's now totally missing, and but they just definitely had problems with that. Something else that happened, a natural thing, and I say this is a major news story because not just because it happened directly here in Buffalo, we were right in the past, so it was a major event, but it was a once in a lifetime event, and it went over a lot of places. Was the total solar eclipse in April? That
yeah,
was we shut down
yeah,
school. We people
yeah.
left work. I mean, Buffalo was right in the path, and the amount of people that came into the area, Western New York, just to be part of it and see it. It was a big deal. I mean,
Oh,
it was
huge. Super
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Did it go over Cabo?
No, but I actually cool fact about the total eclipse. Its peak in terms of intensity and longevity of the actual eclipse of the coverage uh, was in Lampasas, Texas, which is just outside Fort Hood,
Yeah.
just north of where our home in Texas is. One of my best friends on the planet, a guy I love and respect more than most. Uh, Russell White has a ranch there, and he set up an unbelievably cool event. And I was able to, fly in and leave Cabo and go up there and spend the week. And we did the whole thing with the everything, glasses, food, like out right on like the best. And I got to witness it with my wife and kids. It was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. In fact, he was just here fishing with me the other day, and we were looking at pictures from that event, and it was a lot cooler than I thought it was going to be. I've seen a couple of eclipses. I even saw one 2 or 3 years ago here in Cabo, just a real kind of brief one that kind of went like that, kind of. And out on the water, I was fishing at the time when it happened. It was cool because everything changed. The water changed, the air changed. And so it was an interesting environment to be in. And I thought what it must have been like back in the day when something like that happened. Like back in Mayan times where they're like sacrificing thousands of people to like their gods. Like, oh, okay, stop, no more. Like what's that one movie where like they're like chopping people, slitting their throats, like by the hundreds, and then like the eclipse happens. They're like, oh well, oh the gods spoke.
Yeah.
No, it's super cool. One of the neatest things in the fact that the timing of it fell within my lifespan. I really didn't think it was going to be as impressive as it was. And then as it happened, the awesomeness of the moment really struck me that in my life, like that's something that I will always reference.
Yeah, it was pretty big. So when I looked back at 24, I'm like, that's something that definitely
Yeah,
stood out.
for sure.
Any or a few, any for you that in 24 that you consider really significant?
So the eclipse is right up there. For 2024, I think everyone understands I have a small affliction that I'm addicted to fishing. And this year was a spectacular year around the world for fishing. We saw some amazing like fish caught, which was super inspiring. And I caught in a lot of species that I target, in several species that I target. I caught my personal bests. So I saw and touched more blue marlin this year than the rest of my life combined. Um, like caught the biggest rooster fish of my life. And, anyone that knows me knows like how I feel about chasing the roosters. And it's just so neat to see it and cheering other people on. A young lady that works for a great fish brand called Pelagic was on her honeymoon with her husband and caught like 1,000-pounder. I think it ended up being like 1085, and and that's like a lifelong dream for me is to get that Hemingway 1,000-pound fish, and to see other people do it, and this year there were like multiple of those caught, and so just watching from the sidelines and knowing that even though I wasn't part of that, I'm kind of in the same industry, in the same space, and just being happy for those people. And I think that's the biggest thing too, like in human growth. My initial reaction was one of joy versus one of envy. And I just love the space that, I was joyful for other people accomplishing dreams that I have. And I think for me, those are big things, for 2024.
Real quick, because I kind of knowing you as well as I do, we go way back, and I know what warms your heart and what drives you, and I kind of take it as when you could do something for somebody, like when you give someone, a loved one or whatever, a great gift, they really
Yeah.
would appreciate, especially something they never expected, right? And you give that to them. It's better than getting a gift yourself, right? I think for most people, and I know people come down there for a lot of wants. I mean, granted, for the work you did for veterans or veteran outdoors, you got to experience this already a lot with
We still do it with Alpha Elite. Yeah.
right Alpha Lead Outdoors, but giving a veteran an opportunity to a once in a lifetime hunt or fishing trip or whatever.
Yeah.
But down there where people come down, and a lot of them, I know you have repeat customers, but they come down a once in a lifetime chance to see the smiles on their, like you say, just to be witnessed, to maybe be on the boat helping, maybe be on the dock to welcome them back and hear their story at the porch, your bar there in Cabo. But I gotta imagine it's gotta be very satisfying.
Dude,
Um,
let me tell you this crazy story about,
Pictures of people on the boat where they just
yeah.
tag you. Like you can tell you had a profound effect in the service you provide that
I love
they'll
it.
yeah.
You know, uh, it's going to sound cheesy. Some people have heard me say this before in talks or like in conversation, but you and I were infantry guys. So every day we got up with a purpose, and that purpose and that fire was to be the most lethal, best version of ourselves, right? And to expect and to draw and pull that out of our guys, and then to serve our superiors with the best version of ourselves, the most lethal version of ourselves. So every morning, getting up with the fire that and that's that emotional conditioning, from Sand Hill or Harmony Church, whichever one you went to. Left, right, left, right, left, right, kill, right? Just like getting that mind, like every day, waking up with that intent, that purpose, that mindset. And I love guys that are still there. I love guys that their brains still, like Tim. I don't think there's a greater example of a man whose mind is still there in it. Having a business on the side to promote, the betterment and the survival and the lethality of his community, his friends, his family. But there were days where you don't feel good and you're tired and things aren't going well in your life, and that alarm clock went off. And man, the motivation just was low, like low. And it is tough to like talk yourself up and get yourself motivated to get out there. Since starting this chapter of my life, I don't even use an alarm clock. I've used one the past couple of days because I haven't been, there've been late nights and super early mornings with the holidays, and we're a little short staffed. But I get up every morning joyfully because I get to participate in that. And it's such a great headspace to be in, to like know that every morning I'm part of the joyous part of someone's life, a life memory versus a life taking event. So super happy about it. I wish I'd have done this years ago. But love it. And we're like I'd say all the time, we're not in the fishing business. We're in the great memory business. It just happens to be in the fishing industry.
There you go. Hey, so our good friend Pat Oglesby
Hey,
realized, yeah, that you look like someone else he knows. The elf on Santa's elf that wants to be a dentist. He says apparently you have a very striking resemblance. So now you have another
I'm
famous
El Waffle for sure.
connection there. But anyways, so looking again at probably what I consider the number one news event or thing to look on it. If I were thinking
Oh
20, right, there's two, but this both kind of related. But the assassination attempt on President Trump
yeah,
had to be both of them. But the first one, obviously, is one that we all witnessed, and he actually got hit and all that stuff. If I look at 2024, even though there's so many things, that really stands out to me as probably the single most largest news generating event worldwide, for the worldwide, just in the entire world. It had to be the biggest thing for all of us to see it happen. Unlike, back in 63 and and Ford and all that kind of stuff, we just didn't have the media and the proliferation of media and social media, everything, that to everyone to see it so fast, if not in real time. Um, and with such clarity. But I think that is by far, if I were to ever take anything from 2024, to me, that if I forgot everything else, it'd be that was the year of that we saw our president elect almost get assassinated, former president.
yeah. July 13th, right? July
Yep.
13th.
Yep.
And
Don't forget where you were. I knew where I was when Reagan. I
no,
remember
like and that's the exactly what I was just about to say. Like I knew exactly where I was when I heard that. I know who was with me. I was with some my great friends from England that come over and fish with us every year, and I was taking them and showing them around up the peninsula, and it came across my thing, and we all knew that the election was going to be a big election. In fact, there was a lot of fear about the outcome of the election. And man, who would have thought? I mean, I was 5, maybe 6 years old. I guess I was 6 years old. When was Reagan's attempt? 81, 82?
It was, yeah, it was, I want to say it was 81. Yeah.
Yeah, like I was like 6 years old. So like it, I heard about it. I learned a little bit more about it in school, studying, American history, and
We feel old, man.
government. But no, I never thought in our lifetime, in our day and age, with technology and with maturity and lessons learned, that we would see such a deep state, or whatever you call it, conspiracy to kill a presidential candidate.
Yeah.
And I just still soul shook. And it's not because I'm a fan of the guy, because I'm not necessarily his biggest fan. I'm not his worst. Like I appreciate him and respect him, and he's our president, and he was clearly the best choice. But the idea of someone trying to kill, to take that away from the American people, and that's really how I looked at it, and how I do look at it. It's that you're trying not to take someone's life away, you're trying to rob your neighbors of that person that could give them a better life.
Right. Right.
And and what's your motivation to do that? Because clearly, you don't do it because you're mad at a guy. You don't do it because you hate a guy. You do it because you believe that you are removing him from everyone else.
Yeah.
And it's
What came with that was also one of my biggest, how do I say this? It was one of two of the biggest lessons learned of fallacies that I always believed, of a narrative that I totally believed another way in. It was one of two. The first one being, wow, I thought Russia over the last couple of years, I learned, right? I always thought, I was raised in the military from the days before I joined in 1987, that Russia was our biggest threat and was a very competent military. What I've learned over the last couple of years with Ukraine is they're a whole bunch of smackasses that just have a lot of cannon fodder and substandard weapons, because they are not quite the threat that we all thought they were. And I also thought the Secret Service was the premier creme de la creme personal security force that there ever could be of any country in the world. And then that event taught me, wow, I really gave them a lot more credit than maybe they should have deserved. And it was really shocking, because I would not expect anything to get past them. At least nothing as haphazardly as this young punk, and how this whole thing turned out. I would have thought it would take a lot more. And I imagine there's a lot of countries in the world that probably thought, man, that's all we needed. Like, I'm sure a lot of them thought we were trying to figure this out 10 ways to Sunday. And that was
well,
another thing.
I think to your point, I think it inspired the second, right? It
Yeah.
inspired the third. Um, I too always thought, and I still believe, that the Secret Service do hold some of the most talented uh, law enforcement agents and executive protection agents on the planet. I still believe that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But what I also believe, and I believe that event proved it, is that in every organization, there's a D team. And if you want to leverage something, you just put in the D team, right? Unlike you and I that believe the fourth line is like the bruisers, like the D team is just that. It's the D team. And in obviously in this case, it was the D for DEI. And like it was just like I'm keeping it real, man. The
Yeah,
enemy
keep it
doesn't care. The enemy
right.
doesn't care, about that. They want success, and that's why you can't have the D team. That's why you don't make DEI hires. You
Right.
work in a if you are a successful organization, you want to maintain success, you work in a meritocracy. You
Yeah.
recruit, harvest, like the best talent, you retain, you improve, you incubate, you build it up, and you lead with your best. There's a reason why Cuban wrestlers win a lot. There's a reason why Chinese gymnasts win a lot. There's a
Right.
reason why, like, certain things people do because they do it better and they don't care about people's feelings in it. They just do it to be successful. And the Secret Service, can't compromise its standards. That's an organization that must have exceptionally rigid, non-flexible standards of performance.
Yep.
And, like it, sadly, it also shows that, people have more power than they're supposed to have because, like, as has been alleged, the first lady requested, changes in details, to better her situation versus, like someone that truly needed the coverage, clearly,
Right.
which definitely leads to the conspiracy. But it's straight up a conspiracy because that dude is an idiot. He got on top of a roof, and it shows the American people that everyone thinks you're dumb. Like, the people in charge thought you were stupid because you fell for all these other things in the past. And like, what do they say? Like, the greatest trick the devil pulled is to make people think he doesn't exist. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, people still want to kill the president of the United States. We can't sleep on that job. And
Right. I think President Bush, GW said it great right after 9/11, where he said we have to be perfect all the time, and they only have to be lucky once. Right. Um,
amen.
yeah, I want two more. I have a lot more things, but I want two more that I think really stand out, and then because I do want us, and then see if you have anything else, and then I want us to spin a little bit into 25. Um, the two more that really stand out, the biggest. I'm looking at this list is the Israeli pager attack,
Okay.
which like the best. Maybe it just comes from our background, not everyone,
Oh,
but the best and biggest and most planned
oh
out
yeah.
covert operation ever, because it wasn't just one day, and it
Oh
wasn't
no.
just
It might have been the greatest thing intelligence has ever done.
yeah, and
Like,
probably be able to be done again in our lifetimes because it'll take a long time for that's ever forgotten. Um,
that was a
to me,
long play, man. That was like the coolest thing ever. Uh, yeah, and yeah, I'm laughing about people getting their heads blown off. I don't care. Um, the reason they got their head blown off is because they picked the side of evil, and they got what they got. But we can't, like, I'm glad this made your list, man. Like, I'm like smiling ear to ear right now because your list is good. Your list is a lot better than mine. Like, forgot to include this on mine because think of this play, right? So somebody went into a room years ago, and was like, "Hey, boss, I got an idea." And he pitched that idea. And then that boss went to his boss and was like, Sam down the hall here, like, this dude's got a doozy, but hear me out. I know he's a little crazy and he like shows up late and he's probably like high, but listen to this idea. And pitched that to Netanyahu, pitched it to somebody up at the top. Like, this wasn't a low level thing. This was like, and then they put people in positions, infiltrated an entire industry, then infiltrated the infrastructure of a terrorist organization, long played it, captured who knows the amount of intelligence they got off of these things, right? Like, for years, they were harvesting information, tracking locations, phone calls, getting, all kinds of data, right? And then the decision, like, okay, I think we got enough out of this. Let's hit the fucking button. Guys in there shaking a cantaloupe. Bah! Guys riding his moped. Bah! and then it's like the next day, oh, the pager didn't get you. We're gonna hit you with your cell phone, homie.
No, it was better. It was the you're using the ICOM radios because only the senior
Yeah, we're
guy.
gonna get you with everything. We're gonna get you with everything. It was
We're gonna
awesome.
do it. We're gonna do it at the funeral for the dudes we took out the day before. Right?
That's one of the most diabolical things. When I was in my office. And I hysterically started laughing, and everyone in my office like looks at me because they have no idea what rattles around in here, and I hope they never do. And like I was like looking at this room of like straight pure civilian non-Americans, no intimate knowledge with violence, no intimate knowledge with terrorism. For the most part, they're very blessed, very sheltered. And I'm just like, dude, this is the most diabolical. This is some Get Smart, dude. Right? Yeah. Dr. Evil, like, Get Smart. Come on, 99. It's awesome.
It's so big is that any time along this path, from the time that Sam got the idea to when it happened, it could have fallen apart, been compromised, never lined to infiltrate the supply chain. Who knows how many? I mean, they had to re-gut and rebuild all these pagers, bio readers, solar panels. There was a ton of different stuff that blew up. They had to infiltrate all of that.
Yeah,
just wait patiently. I do think, and I do believe that they gave it a test run. They tried Sam's idea. They're like, all right, we got a lot of this done. We got to give it one test run, because at the time in May of 2024, Iran's president Razi was carrying a pager. They had pictures of him with a pager, and all of a sudden his helicopter just fell out of the sky. And he had his personal helicopter, and it killed and he was very hardline president of Iran. And it was like, oh, and they never blamed Israel because they were like, it was over Iran. His helicopter just crashed, blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't until after this happened, they were like, look at all these pictures of him with a pager. And it was like, I really think they were like, let's just try his. Let's see if it works. And Sam, before we do everything else, this is our beta run. This is our test run. Boom. All right, that's a go. This is full on.
And then hit Gen 2. Hit Gen 2, Sam.
Biometric, Sam, you can put in toasters, you can put in air fryers, whatever, like, anything, freaking non-bread bakers, whatever they got, right? You put it in there. And to me, that really stands out as another one that just is like, for us, yes, it's as we laugh and it's positive, even though.
But I will say it speaks to the positive application of technology.
Oh, I was going to say violence.
No, I mean, so you and I both like worked in combat zones, with improvised explosive devices. Young men and women came up with counter IED tools like the Rhino, with the batteries to like create heat signatures to defeat passive infrared and on these things. So I love seeing the application of technology for positive things in terms of violent warfare. That was exceptionally well contained. It was a great intelligence gatherer. And the only people that got hurt were the bad guys. It was one of those beautiful, surgical, but also like, we beat you at your own game.
And it's happening ever to this day, as Oglesby said, right? They're afraid of everything electronic.
Yeah. We beat you at your own game.
There's no Best Buy.
We needed that win. Like, when I say we, I mean good people,
right?
Good humans, right?
Yeah. There's
not evil terrorists that are like killing, kidnapping, raping. They're like the good, the wider, the sheepdog, the good people.
Yeah.
That was a big win for all good people, for humankind.
Yeah.
And while it was a little bit diabolical, man, they just beat them at their own game. And
Yeah.
sometimes, like to get someone to stop bullying you, you got to punch them in the face. And that was one of the greatest face
It
punches in the history of humanity.
it may have thwarted Best Buy's planned expansion into Lebanon anytime soon. I think Circuit City's out of the picture.
Yeah.
Radio
They'll,
Shack
they'll get
no more.
over it. They'll get over it.
Yeah.
Cons will pick up that. Cons or Fries will pick up that contract.
Fries is a great name for it. Yeah, and then the other one, not so obviously not any bit joyful or whatever, but and is a very sad thing, but is one that I think still stands out is just because the ravage and they just shock and awe of Mother Nature of
Yeah,
hurricane. To me,
that's
that's like to me that's the sad thing of 2024 was just, and they are still suffering, right? We know there are still many people
absolutely.
in West Carolina and even some in Eastern Tennessee that are still suffering, whose families were wiped out, lives were completely upended, changed forever, and some are still living in tents and trailers
Yeah,
and whatever. Just something that no one ever thought could happen in that area. They expect it
yeah,
in Florida. Florida got a couple good whammies,
yeah,
including they were ready for it, right? They
yeah. The
recovered.
very storm that did all that damage uh, struck Florida only a mere 7 or 8 days after an even more devastating one for Florida had struck. Um, Mother Nature, she's a mean mistress, and we need to respect her, and just just because you don't think these things can happen, well, they can. It's probably been a decade since that winter storm Sandy, right? Or that storm Sandy went through New York and came up the
Yeah,
East Coast.
yeah,
And people are like, oh, that would never happen to us, and then it happens, and it's just like it's devastating. The catastrophic loss, um, and I think what accentuated, we just don't believe in our minds how remote middle America can be. And we don't think that it would take this epic Lord of the Rings saga of trials and tribulations to hike in there, because it's just right there in the middle of America, where it's populated. We can just get there easy. And
right,
then, the harsh reality is, when these mountain roads are gone and these, houses get washed away and this water can't be contained. And I mean, the city of Asheville and, those other places, those mountaintops, like you live on top of a mountain, the last thing you're concerned about is a flood.
yeah,
Like you're on the high ground, like you're not in Houston, Texas. You're not in New Orleans. You're not
right,
in Mobile, Alabama. You're not in Tampa Bay. You're on the high ground. The last thing you expect is that your home on a mountaintop is going to get washed away in
right,
like an epic flood, reminiscent of biblical times with Noah. I mean, just unreal. And sadly, like that's probably the most devastating thing that's happened in America in a minute. And it affected so many people, and it also showed our vulnerability in the sense that because we arrogantly believe that we can just fix anything with Amazon Prime, well, we just couldn't fix that. But inspiringly, the American spirit rose up, and God bless those people that answered that call, that went out there and did what they could and like endured to get to those people. And God bless those people that endured that and lost and will continue to grieve and suffer, and it will honestly never recover. They will improve upon their position, but they will never recover their position. And so a definite American grieving will continue to happen about that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's prayers are still going out with those people. I know they still need support, and and just something's going to take them a while to recover. I mean, natural disasters happen; they happen to all of us. It's just part of adulting and being part of life. But that was just definitely when it was over the top. Let's talk about 25, man. We rang in with it. We are day 2 into that, and obviously, I just want to hit on talk. I guess we're on the trend of just sad, terrible things, right? Some are man-made, some are nature-made, and this man-made happened just a few hours into the new year, um, with a horrible attack down in New Orleans, and
Mm.
and then crazy. Just this other thing is it's Cybertruck blowing up at and Trump's in Vegas, hours after, and then people trying to just you think there's correlation, but doesn't seem to be. But now we have the Sugar Bowl. It just ended, which by the way Notre Dame won, in case anyone's wondering. Hey,
Ooh.
but the yeah, so I mean, it's you have a day later, and they were able to secure that place, clean up. But boy, what a whirlwind last 24 hours in the 2025 this has been. And before I turn over to you to get your thoughts and feedback just on this first 48 hours of this year, I mean, is this a premonition? I mean, is this an omen to what 2025 is going to be like? Not as far as terrorist attacks, but just the craziness of 2025. I think it will be. I don't think it's 2025 is going to slow down. If anything, it's going to go full speed. But what are your thoughts on these first couple of days here and this terrible attacks that we've seen?
So, you and I talked a little bit earlier. I I spent my day yesterday uh, tending bar at our little bar. We're a little shorthanded, so I was tending bar, and we watched the Texas game, and then we watched the Oregon game, and I didn't even know it happened. Um, and the commentators in both games that we watched, and I was watching ESPN. That was the channel that was showing the games that we were watching. Uh, they they didn't mention it at all. I didn't know that it had happened till later in the evening when someone told me, and I was really perplexed. And then when I got the opportunity this morning to like kind of look into it, and one of the group chats that you and I are in, there was all kinds of stuff going in there, and it was a good source of information. But one, sporting events are a tremendous vulnerability. They've always been a vulnerability. It is hard to mitigate that, and I think we've done a good job to do better with it. There have been so many attacks on sporting events that just didn't even make the news. Several years ago, a young guy, put a couple pipe bombs in his backpack and, tried to gain access. I think it was a University of Nebraska game or something like that. And, like ended up detonating himself in the parking lot because, they implemented a search feature to enter that facility. We need to remember to be vigilant. We need to remember, like people still dislike us. People are still disgruntled. Um, and people are still looking to upset the success of the Western way of life. Um,
I think the Boston
and
bomb example of what probably has saved a lot
yeah,
of other. There was a lot of
yeah,
lessons learned.
yeah. Like Boston, like we did learn a ton there for sure. Um, the Cybertruck one, that's a completely weird, different one. Um, it's fascinating because it appears like the guy was, like a moderately to highly trained American Special Forces soldier, um, which like that I think doesn't deserve the news that it's getting, but it's getting the news because the guy did it, at a Trump tower. You know, I think people attach themselves to that name,
He's
and
still
they believe.
right. Unlike Jabbar, this guy's still on. He's on leave from Germany from 10th Group. So I
Yeah,
think that tension, right?
yeah. So there's I think there's a lot going on with that other one that they need to figure out. But looking forward into 2025, I will say that the attack in New Orleans that these things, people want to hurt us. This hasn't changed. To go back to what you said earlier, we have to be good 100% of the time. They have to be lucky once. And like as George W. said, and we need to be vigilant, and we need to not be complacent because we think we haven't had anything bad happen in a while. Nothing bad will ever happen again. No, we're just waiting on the next thing, and we need to be vigilant to protect ourselves from it. I will also say that I imagine without a doubt that people are going to do what that guy did in Las Vegas, in the sense that there's some Trump hating going on. And I think people are going to try and attach themselves to violence towards that person or that name, so that they can gain personal notoriety. A guy asked me a question about that today here, and he was like, "Whatever would possess you to do that?" And as I told him, and as I believe, people do that because we will then speak life into their name. We will know that name. We can remember the name of all these mass shooters, serial killers, these terrible people. They get celebritized, and we speak life into their name. We don't know the victim. We don't know their names. Like, you can tell me who the Sandy Hook shooter is, but you can't tell me one of the however many little kids' names that perished that day. Like the Lakeland shooting, or whatever it is, these terrorist attack. We know the names of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. We don't know any of the 3,500 names unless you were related to them in general terms, right? So I think people are going to try and do that. I think people that are, disenfranchised and easily radicalized are going to try and take advantage of attacking that name. And, like, without a doubt, there are people that truly want an insurrection. They do not want Trump in charge. And they believe that, their vote was more important, or their viewpoint is more important than everyone else in America, or the people that did vote that way. And they're going to act that way. And I expect and anticipate that we're going to have some bad news.
Yeah.
However, I think we're going to have great news, in the sense that, I believe that our level of leadership from the bottom up is going to improve, because I believe that there's going to be an accountability, and good leadership falls off when there's no accountability. And when you can just lie to Congress, like the way Director Wray did, as the director of the FBI, without consequence. When you put someone in there that has accountability, like that message starts at the bottom and goes all the way to the top.
Look, what's got to happen is integrity has got to be reestablished in our federal government agencies, right? Department of, and it doesn't matter who Trump picks, who it approves, but it needs to be not people. Yes, they're appointed by somebody, and he appoints people that, or nominates people, both, different types of things that support his vision and do whatever. But we need that integrity. But Department of Justice, CDC, NIH, the FBI, you name it, they all need to go back to rebuilding the trust of the American people and doing their on behalf of what's best for the American people, and not on behalf of who occupies the people's house.
Right? And not in the terms of retaliation, and not in the terms of retribution. They just need to do it for the betterment of society, and for the betterment of the will of the people.
And if there are from the past that weren't pursued because of people had an agenda, then yes, they should look at those. But like you said, they should also handle everything else, and they need to do their job, not do DEI, not do 30 by 30, which is a form of DEI, or anything else. It needs to be put the best people in the positions, so we don't have this stuff happen, right? So they know how to do their job. And that's going to mean some people that like Trump and stuff like that, maybe the things that Trump likes may not turn out the way he wants, but that's okay because the idea is it's for the betterment of the country, not the betterment of a
Yeah, I
person.
mean, whoever ends up with the Secret Service needs to do away with the D team.
Right.
Like, and that's not because Trump needs to get retribution or retaliate because someone tried killing him. No, it needs to happen so that President Biden doesn't get assassinated, like going to buy ice cream. We need infrastructure to actually get fixed versus like a bill being called infrastructure to send money to somebody else.
Right.
I think we can look forward to some accountability. And I think not just because of the leadership, I think we can look forward to some accountability because the American people spoke loudly in the election. They spoke loudly about how they were affected through COVID. They spoke loudly about, being forced to take vaccines and losing jobs. They spoke loudly about policies being inflicted upon them that they disagreed with. They spoke loudly against, an infringement on their views. They spoke loudly about an infringement on their constitutional rights. They spoke loudly against corruption. And that's not a Trump thing. That's not a Biden thing. That's a like
Constitution thing.
that's like the reason it's there is to stop these very things. And I really believe that we can anticipate positive movements in that arena. I believe it's going to come with a detrimental cost, but I believe in the grand scheme of things, it will be positive to remind people that, like work hard. The age of participation trophies, I think, is coming to an end. I think, people are realizing that, when people say things, it's not necessarily rhetoric if they truly believe it and they're right. Like we have a deep state problem. We have a problem where people within the government utilize the government and its system against the very leadership of the government, against the people. We have law enforcement nationwide. Now, I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not saying all cops are bad. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I think there's a real problem with people in law enforcement infringing upon people's constitutional rights. And I understand why. I get it because like a criminal's not going to be honest with you. Like that's why they're criminals. Like a thief's not going to tell you stole something. He's going to lie to you about it. The guy that's drinking and driving is going to tell you that he didn't have any drinks, even though you can smell it. But, like I believe that, there's going to be this accountability. And I believe that people need to do better, and not for retaliation and not for retribution, but for the betterment of society. And I think the American people sent that message when they cast their votes that it was time to. And again, like I'm saying this, and I'm not, as you know, like I'm not a big Trumper, but I like success. I like good business. I like good negotiations, and I believe putting the right person in the job. And if that person isn't the right person, I believe in firing him.
And that's one thing that President Trump, even though ridiculed in his first 4 years, did a lot more than anyone.
And as he should. I don't know how we had Lloyd Austin for 4 fucking years. I don't know. Like,
well, I just read a report right before
we had I don't know how we had like none of those people. The only person that got fired was the interim Secret Service, like interim.
Right.
Like that's not even like how do you get fired from a job you don't even actually have?
Right.
Like that, it's ridiculous. So I look forward to positive things like that, and I look forward to people realizing that you can disagreements, not disloyalty, and I believe that American optimism, North American optimism, will be on the rise.
Yeah. It's interesting though you mentioned that because I read a report right before the show went on that the National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan actually offered to resign after the horrible Afghanistan collapse and withdrawal. He offered to, And Biden said no, he wanted to keep him on. So not only did the administration not fire anyone, the guy offered to resign and said, "I'll resign because this was under my watch." Blah blah blah, and
But he didn't.
but
But
he
he,
didn't.
but he
True,
didn't.
didn't. He
Like,
could have out. I quit. He could have done whatever, spit on the Resolute desk, whatever it took. But yeah, he didn't. He offered. Um, but I mean, that's just the not holding someone accountable. You know, Pete Buttigieg missing for the first 30, 40 days being the Secretary of Transportation when the supply chain disaster was going on and prices were going through the roof. And he's on maternity leave for a woman that gave birth to his child that him and his gay husband adopted. Um, is not that's right there was the first sign that dude did not deserve to be the Secretary of Transportation when it wasn't like he was the father or the mother, but he took 30 to 40 days off when he's a cabinet member and
yeah,
his responsibility is needed and is over
no,
the big happening in the country.
the I'm a small business owner. We're kind of too old to have kids or any more kids. Uh, as a small business owner, as a leader of that organization, I can't take maternity leave. As the chief executive, I can't do that. Um, the fact that people promote things like that, maternity leave for somebody that didn't have a kid, I think one, it's disrespectful to women that did. Um, uh, but I really think we need to stop finding ways to exploit the system and and that's the difference, right? Guys like Pete Buttigieg, played the game, got paid, didn't have to do their job, and that's all around. That's all around, and I think we need to get back to the place where if you take this job, like you don't get vacation.
Right.
I gotta be honest with you. I believe the president should get some downtime. And if he wants to go, tear it up on the golf course, or he wants to go sit on the beach and lick ice cream, that's awesome. But not for weeks.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
you're the leader of the free world. You don't get vacations. You want to change the scenery and you want to entertain and do stay visits. Well, that's why we have like Camp David. That's why
Yeah.
we have these places so that you can do that with full staffs. Um, but
I,
you don't need to be like on the beach, and you don't need to
yeah.
be on the golf course every day. You need to be doing the work of the American people. You're only there for 4 years. And to say that you don't have time to accomplish some of the things that you need to accomplish, that's just bullshit.
Yeah.
It's just straight up bullshit. Yeah, like
There were there
the
were a lot of
Bucks.
things on up till November 5th by both the president and vice president of what was going to be done and what was going to be promised, and not one of them has happened, and neither one of them have been around. But I was going to say, the other day I was talking to my youngest, my youngest, and we were talking about adulting and life. And I was talking about whether you're working for the man or you are the man, like yourself, where you're a small business owner, and I forget how we got on it, but I was like, yeah, people think that I was telling people think that own a business like they're rich and they got it made. I said, and no,
No, you
people that
work
own
more than anybody else.
businesses work 60 to 80 hours. They don't have a life. They don't see their family because they're doing everything they can to put in for that business to eventually take off and be stable
Yeah.
enough. They
If
harder than anyone else, right?
And that's
Yeah,
why Elon Musk is the greatest choice for whatever it is, the Department of Government Efficiency.
yeah,
Because like the reason Elon Musk is in the position that Elon Musk is in is because he works hard. And to quote Tim Kennedy, there's a lot of freedom on the other side of hard work. Like put in the reps. And you want to like have this power and you want to have this level of success, well, you got to work. And if you're in a cabinet level position, you shouldn't be disappearing for 30 days.
right.
You shouldn't
Not to
have
get
30.
a surgery, not to spend time with your newly adopted baby, right?
Right. No, like there's just two of many examples of dereliction of duty. And that's
Yeah,
what it is. It's dereliction of duty. And the American people paid for it, paid handsomely for it. and these people weren't held accountable. Uh, like, I'm sorry, you want to be the mayor of New York City? You want to be the mayor of one of the biggest cities in the world? Well, you don't get to vacation. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like, you have it for 2 years or whatever your term is, 3 years. You need to put in that work. And if you're not willing to do that, don't run.
I know for
Don't
a
put
fact
your name. Don't put your name in the hat.
you've spent a couple years building this business and redoing. You have a couple businesses there. I know for a fact when you leave, I always think of it when you come back to the States and stuff, and it's usually short trips. It reminds me of like when we would come home from combat for like our mid tour leave. The whole
Oh, they
time
do.
the whole time you're home, you're thinking about the dudes back there and how
Yeah,
bad. Hoping they're okay. You're hoping they don't go on a mission without you. You're hoping
yeah,
nobody gets up.
absolutely.
And I know when you're in the States and you may be doing work stuff or doing whatever, but if you're not there, your mind's there the whole time. And I know your family has.
Because in the end, the buck stops with me.
Right.
You know, like,
Right.
and like we're taught in the military to make sure that you don't have a single point of failure, right? Like that's air salt like 101. Don't have a single point of failure. You
Yeah.
know, like have a 5-point contingency plan. Uh, you know, we we in the end the buck stops with us.
Right.
We are, and if you're the president of the United States, you're a cabinet member, you're the mayor of a town, you're the chief of police, if you're in public service and you've asked to be in that position and you told the people that you represent that you are affecting that you are the best person for the job, well, I'm sorry, like you don't get 30, 60, 90 days to go watch somebody else breastfeed a kid that you didn't give birth to. Sorry.
Well,
Like,
yes.
do your job. Everybody else does. There's a lot of guys, and there's a lot of girls overseas that don't get days off because they raise their hand and they sign their name.
There's,
And they miss their kids' birthdays, they miss their wife or husband's anniversary.
yeah.
They miss first steps. They miss all kinds of things for the betterment of the American society, the betterment of the American people. And if you're a leader, you should do the exact same. I got zero sympathy. And it doesn't matter about party. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
To whom much is given, much is expected.
Hey, look, when you work for the government, you're a civil servant. No matter if you're in the military, no matter if you're in state, local government, you're a firefighter or police. I mean, there's firefighters that miss those same things because they're in the firehouse. They got to be, or they're police officers. Everyone gets vacation stuff just like the military and just like every government employee. But if you're a GS4 to an SES to an executive appointee, you're a civil servant. And it, just like how this country started, for those that were even elected, who only were supposed to, that's why we need term limits, different topic, different show. But this is why you go up there, and it's not there. You're not there to make money off. You're not there to become rich. You're not there as a lifetime appointment, unless you're the Supreme Court. You're there to serve the people of this country, which means that you have a higher standard of which you must adhere to. What we used to tell our soldiers, Toby, when we went on leave, when we went somewhere for training and they got a day or two off, remember, you an ambassador of not only you represent the entire U.S. military mass. So when you want to run to Tijuana and act like an idiot, remember that short haircut and those dog tags and ID card, they're looking at you as a soldier, right? So if you go act cool, you're representing all of us, right?
Yeah.
And
what I'm doing right now was not allowed in Korea.
putting a hat on backwards?
Correct.
Yeah.
Because I represented the United States. If
And
I was to wear a hat, I had to wear it properly. If I was to wear a shirt, it had to be appropriate. I represented the nation.
Yeah. And civilian businesses do the same thing. Anyone who works for an airline, when they fly, they better be dressed right. They can't get on looking like Joe Bob the shitbag when even if they're personal, because they're flying, because they have aircraft, they have an air crew tag on, right, to get on. You're representing the airline. If you're a soldier, a cop, anything, and a government employee, you're representing the government for your. People look at you as like, I pay your taxes. I pay your salary. They really do.
And this lesson is taught to the youth, and this is where we failed. It started with minor sports: dress up for game day, suit up, wear that dress clothes in school for game day. You're getting on the bus on minor hockey, right? You were a minor hockey coach. Hunter played hockey and then reffed, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Shirt and tie, baby. Shirt and tie.
Yeah. You
Like,
walk.
because you're representing something greter than yourself. You're representing your team and you're representing your town. And, like hockey
And
still
if you're
does. The NHL still do it. NBA
right,
don't. Like, they come out wearing crazy ass,
right.
sweats and cool. Like, you make 15
But
million bucks.
football does it. NHL does it. And if you're hurt, you're still on the bench or on the sideline to support your team. You don't get to go. You're still showing up because you're part of the team, right? Those are those basic principles that we just got. But
Yeah.
hey, I know we got to go. I know you need to run. You got a lot going on tonight, brother. I was trying to be aware of that.
Yeah, no worries.
Anything else before we go? Anything else in 25 you want to highlight? We covered a lot in an hour.
No, man. I just would be remiss if I didn't go back and say this is a great year. Despite everything in a couple of days, this is a great year because it's what you make it. And if you move with intention, you move with positivity, you move with your faith, everything will be great. Everything will be fine. And then in a year, we can sit back and say, like 2025 wasn't that bad. And, and let's look forward to 2026. Let's, let's not lament as much as reminisce, and let's look forward. And I think I saw a comment someone was talking about like the windshield versus the rear view. Like the reason the windshield's bigger is because there's a lot more to look at, and it's a lot more important to see what's coming than it is to see what happened.
Well, that's spot on, and it's all about experiences. As we get older in our lives, right? It's the things come and go; they break, you get rid of them. But experiences and memories you hold on forever. And I'm excited. I'm gonna be doing my first big experience of 25 in 18 days. You can figure those dates out, and I'll be glad to be sending pictures and video from the inauguration, and got many others. And I'm really, really hoping, brother, that in 2025 brings us together on one of your boats. Down there, and we gonna make some videos, and you can do a new.
Do it.
I'm gonna show you how we did it in Alaska. That's all I'm gonna say. We going deep.
Yeah, I got some Alaska in me too, man.
You do, hey, dude. I hit the having work body just so I can just pull that rod back, rocking.
Don't skip leg day then.
I don't skip leg day either.
Don't skip leg day.
Never skip that. I've been out hunting. There's no way I've been skipping leg day hunting, man. There's been nothing but walking. But anyways, Toby, thank you very much, brother. Great to have you back. Good 2025 kickoff of the show. Everyone else, thank you so much for joining us and for tuning in and listening for almost an hour and a half. Everyone have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. I got some great guests I've already lined up. I think I got one on next week for sure. We got a couple coming in, so stay tuned. And Toby, have a good one, brother.
God bless you and your family and everyone else.
You too, man. We'll see y'all later. Everyone have a good night.